All right, everyone, I think we'll begin. I'll keep letting people in as they come, but thank you for coming to Advancing Mentoring Frameworks. And our speakers today are Dr. San Jules, Dr. Jackson, and Dr. Buchanafa. Letting people in, and I will let them take it away. Thank you very much.
Leslie, thank you so much for the honorific titles.
I know. So sorry. Sorry.
No, we appreciate that. Dr. San Jules is Dr. San Jules, and Dr. Jackson and I, we are aspiring doctors. We are both in our respective doctoral programs and supporting each other through this process. So, but we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all so much for joining us today. The way we are going to proceed through this presentation is we're going to share with you some of our research, and then we're actually going to move into some breakout rooms so that we can talk about your experiences with mentoring and as mentors. And just to give you a little bit of background about this presentation and our research, the three of us, we are actually going to be presenting, and we have co-authored a paper on this topic for the University of New Mexico's Mentoring Institute. And as we were thinking about the research and the writing that we've done, we saw this opportunity for the New Jersey Convening on diversifying the teacher workforce. And we thought that the findings that we wrote about would be applicable in the education space, in the K-12 education space. So we hope that some of what we share with you today will help you in terms of recruiting more Black women teachers, as well as retaining those teachers. So here's some of our research. So who decides the nature of the mentoring relationships engaged in by Black women across professions? Quite often, not Black women, for reasons ranging from the absence from positions of leadership to fear of failure within the mentoring context. And that's from research done by Muhammad in 2012. In this presentation, we advocate for a foregrounding of the mentoring preferences articulated by Black women across professions, especially within diversity, equity, inclusion, and access spaces. Mentoring relationships as determined and developed by Black women become high value assets, especially in predominantly white professional spaces. The efficacy and value of Black women's self-directed mentoring are best viewed utilizing the lenses of Black feminist theory and sociocultural capital. Additionally, discussion of adult mentoring theories and study findings illuminates when, where, and how Black women have created our own opportunities for successful mentoring. Based on a review of existing literature, we offer conceptual models for facilitating and replicating effective and sustainable mentoring relationships among Black women. The proposed conceptual models and frameworks expand and advance mentoring practice by first recognizing the substantive nature of the mentoring relationships in which Black women are often organically engaged. Then we shift the perception of such mentoring from organic and informal interactions to purposeful, holistic, self-determined mentoring practices that feature distinctive, longitudinal, replicable, effective, and even life-saving elements that empower Black women as they navigate post-collegiate societal barriers, racial and gender biases, and multi-pronged attacks on their self-esteem. Within various professional and social contexts, we, all Black women who have been both mentees of and mentors for other Black women, including each other, have seen and experienced the success of these models. Often, mentoring has served as a rite of passage, supportively guiding young Black women into adulthood. Also, as an intentional means of developing stronger leaders within organizations, and as a compass for navigating apathetic or hostile professional environments. Moving on. Mentoring relationships among Black women serve as transformative opportunities for personal and professional growth. Such relationships also exist as sites of agency and empowerment, especially when the prospective mentee or protege chooses to be mentored and chooses her mentor. So we're going to take a minute or so to hear from one such Black woman who took the opportunity to choose her mentor.
Internally, I always wanted someone to choose me to mentor because of the lack of direction I experienced at such a tender age. I thought I could find it in school, in the streets, even in church. I grew up believing that you had to be chosen, and everyone seemed to be well polished, and that didn't quite describe who I was and still can be on any given day. I have always been rough around the edges with a Philly girl spitfire tongue. As I started to become what is needed professionally and personally, I noticed that the first thing that I had to become polished was my language and tone, as well as my writing skills. I became bold, and instead of waiting to be chosen, I decided to choose who I thought would not just tolerate but celebrate my accomplishments via their expertise. I reached out to many, and I either got a no or a half-hearted yeses. Without full commitment, I finally chose someone who was initially shocked by my consideration but accepted my call to help me with writing and my vernacular in hopes to deepen my well of intellect. It was important for me to seek a Black woman mentor because of our resilience and our ability to nurture what wants to grow under our care.
So the woman that you just heard from is Ms. Latoya Singleton, and she is actually my protege. She's a former student of mine. I'm an adjunct instructor at Community College of Philadelphia, in addition to the work that I do for Thomas Jefferson University. And I've been at Community College of Philadelphia for 20 years. And Latoya was one of my English 101 students, and she struck me immediately with her intellect and just her passion for behavioral health. That was her major. And so years later, she reached out to me. We're friends on Facebook, and she reached out to me and she asked me if I would be her mentor. And I was shocked because I hadn't considered myself a mentor. I just thought I was her instructor. But we've engaged in a mentoring relationship that you'll come to learn a little bit more about how these types of relationships take shape as we move through the presentation. And so we're going to move into a bit of discussion about the role that Black feminist theory and intersectionality plays in the development of Black women determined mentoring frameworks. And I will hand it over to Dr. Lisa Sandin Jules.
Thanks, Karima. So we started off looking at Black female identity and looking at it as though it were a prism. So it was really important in thinking about mentoring relationships, and especially when you think about things in terms of retention, to recognize people individually as gendered and racial identities, as well as just who they are outwardly. So we began by looking at the work of the legal scholar, Kimberly Crenshaw, and we looked at her theory of intersectionality. So intersectionality essentially is looking at the intersection or the interaction of lots of different variables. In our case, particularly, we were looking at things like race, class, identity, and how it all affects someone's experience. So for example, my experience as a Black woman in higher ed is very different from the experience that's undertaken by some of my white female colleagues. Typical mentoring relationships we found in all of our research are really generally somewhat helpful for everybody, and just somewhat helpful, especially for Black women. When Black women are allowed the opportunity to have mentoring relationships where there's more of them that's acknowledged, where there's more aspects of the intersectionality that's brought into the picture, then they're able to bring their whole selves to the table. So you can be yourself, you can talk about your experience through all of those different lenses. And it's very important too, because when there's this kind of an experience, and of course this wouldn't be just for Black women, it would be for any group that's able to have this kind of a mentoring relationship. It allows you to confront and invalidate some of the professionally and personally limiting stereotypes that we all face on a day-to-day basis. So this idea, of course, isn't new. There's always been professional and supportive organizations, particularly for Black women. They date back to 1896 with the establishment of the National Association for Colored Women. As Black women began to increase in their social and political power, other organizations became more available to them as safe havens, mostly organizations that we ourselves had to create. So for example, the three of us are a member of an organization known as ABWE, the Association of Black Women in Higher Education. That's an extremely supportive organization, and in fact brought us here today and brought us all together. So I think that's important to acknowledge. Some of those other organizations are the historically Black fraternities and sororities, particularly, of course, the sororities for the women. And of course, we have here some of those, which are Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta, and Sigma Gamma Rho. So these are all organizations that help Black women find spaces where we're nurtured and supportive, while also allowing us the opportunity to fight feelings of discrimination and isolation. So we can go ahead to the next slide.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. Another lens through which we have been viewing Black women and mentoring relationships and mentoring frameworks that we develop is the lens of sociocultural capital. And so to understand the benefits that are realized when Black women are able to access and apply effective mentoring in corporate and other professional spaces, as well as to recognize the inequities that persist when Black women do not have opportunities for such access and application, we use a particular definition that shapes that lens of sociocultural capital. So building on Lynn's analysis, Heslett and Gibson in 2007 provided a definition of social capital that situates it as a form of investment. So the word capital, this is the definition. The word capital in the term social capital captures the idea of the creation of value in response to an investment, reflecting similar uses of the word in the terms economic capital and human capital. As economic capital involves the investment of resources, such as labor, equipment, and supplies for the production of economic profit, and human capital involves investment in education or training for the production of skills and knowledge, social capital involves individuals investing in social ties to gain access to the resources of others in the group or network. So again, that's a definition of sociocultural capital, the one that we're using for our work and our research. And it's important to focus on this last bullet point that you can see here on the slide, and that is that Black women realize and reinvest many benefits when they're able to access and apply effective mentoring in corporate and other professional spaces. And we're going to move on to these are some examples of the mentoring frameworks determined by Black women. And within these particular frameworks, you can see that accrual of sociocultural capital, that reinvestment of sociocultural capital. And so some of the characteristics that we noticed about these mentoring frameworks determined by Black women are that they are holistic, okay? They focus on the whole person, as Lisa mentioned earlier, the ability to be one's full self in the mentoring space. They're also longitudinal. They often tend to be more than just, oh, you know, you're a new person on your job and now we're going to put you in this mentoring program for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. We're talking about, in some cases, lifetime commitments. When you think about the African-American sororities that Lisa mentioned earlier, the understanding when you join these organizations is that you are a member for life. And there are opportunities to join both as college women, but also post-college. In the post-college space, I actually became a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated as a graduate member, as did my co-presenter, Kaya Jackson. And we understand that we will be in this until we are very old women in the organization. And the same is true for Lisa's, for Sigma Gamma Rho. These mentoring frameworks are also portable. Just as an example, Lisa and I met when I worked at Rutgers University as well, and we became fast friends and peer mentors. And I left Rutgers University. I work in another state now, but Lisa and I are still peer mentors, friends, sisters. We're the ponytail and glasses crew. But this is just an example that, you know, these relationships don't necessarily end when the mentor or the protege moves away or enters another stage of life. These frameworks are flexible. They're flexible. They allow for the vicissitudes of life. They allow for things like moves, geographical moves, moves in position at work or things like that. Sometimes the relationships are much more, I don't want to say intense, but they work as you need them to work. So sometimes you need more time with your mentor or your protege. Sometimes you need less time. You might talk every day. You might talk once a week. You may talk every few months as you need, but flexibility is a key characteristic. And some exemplary frameworks of these types of mentoring relationships are fictive kinships. You may have heard the term other mothers. Also sisters in the struggle. So the three of us, the three presenters here, we are all sisters in the academia struggle. Kaya and I are sisters in the doctoral struggle here. I see Dr. Lisa Knox Brown is in the meeting as well, and she is one of my sisters in the doctoral struggle. She has passed the baton now, and it's up to me. And Sisters in the Struggle is also a form of peer mentor relationship. There's also collective sociocultural capital banking. And so again, we talk about sororities, Black Greek lettered organizations, because those organizations are near and dear to us. But these are spaces where skills and knowledge are banked. And if you are a member of these organizations as a Black woman, you're able to draw on those deposits that have already been made by other members. You have people who can tell you how to approach a particular job situation. You have this extended network. You have people who can, give you preparation and guidance that you might not find outside of these groups. And not to say that sororities are the only places where this banking happens. Not all Black women are members of Black Greek lettered organizations, but there are many other Black women's organizations and clubs, as Lisa mentioned earlier in the presentation. So we're now going to move into a deeper explanation of models of mentoring as determined by Black women. And I'm going to hand the presentation over to Kaya.
So within this framework, what does a mentor for Black women look like? There are several types of mentoring models, one-on-one mentoring, group mentoring, that Black women can be and are engaged in. But for the sake of this presentation, let's take a look a little bit more deeply into three specific types of models: organic mentoring, peer-to-peer mentoring, and mosaic mentoring. Next slide, please. Organic mentoring is built on established relationships, such as with teachers, church members, community leaders. The mentees in this space, consciously or unconsciously, select people whom they choose to emulate within these common spaces. These mentorships, because they're so close in emotional and physical proximity, are truly valuable because it allows the mentor to help the mentee holistically, providing them with spiritual, emotional, as well as academic support. In these relationships, it is encouraged for barriers to be crossed because the role of the mentor in these spaces already has this already built level of trust. Although there is much value in these type of organic mentor-mentee relationships, people sometimes consider these myopic and hierarchical relationships, and they think that sometimes it stifles the growth of Black women as they change their worldview and experience growth. This in no way says that these organic traditional mentors are not of value at all. As Black women grow and change, so do her needs and support systems. The second type is peer-to-peer. One of the most common examples of peer-to-peer mentoring, as Karima and Dr. Sanjols mentioned, is through Black sororities. And the sororities of the Divine Nine, the 9 historically Black Greek letter organizations, they hold a unique position in the mentoring context because they allow for traditional peer-to-peer as well as multi-generational mentoring. Within Black Greek letter sororities, Black women avail themselves of diverse sources of guidance and support while in college. And because of the commitment to lifelong membership, These organizations encourage Black women to, who are able to continue these mentoring relationships long after they graduate from college. And the final model of mentoring for Black women, even though we know that these memberships in Black sororities is priceless, what about the Black women who didn't go to college or didn't join a sorority? The search for a mentor for these women are often found in spaces specific to their environment or in their field of expertise. Organizations such as the National Council of Negro Women and the NAACP provide mentoring opportunities for women who are not connected to a sorority. There are also opportunities for women who didn't go to college, such as organizations like the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. Black professional organizations like these represent what's called mosaic mentoring. And mosaic mentoring allows for these women to benefit from a collective of professionals from different backgrounds, levels of expertise, and ages. Corporations also use mosaic mentoring through their affinity groups and through their employee resource groups as a way to develop and retain their diverse talent.
Okay, thank you so much, Kaya. Okay, so we're getting ready to go into our breakout rooms for some more focused discussion. I'm going to hand the presentation over to Dr. Shannon Jules, and she will give us our instructions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karima and Kaya. So now that we've talked a little bit about what the models and theories of mentoring are, let's spend a little bit of time thinking about what mentoring can be and should be for Black women. So if you could, in the chat, maybe put some answers to these questions. So the question is, are you a mentor? And if so, why? So we have a couple of different answers here too. Not currently. Yes, I am a mentor because I've benefited from being a mentee. And I am a mentor because it's important to give back. Not that I know of. I actually love that answer. Not that I know of. And it, to me, brings me back to that first one up there that says, no, I'm not a mentor right now. Because many times what I found, and I'm sure that others will speak to this too, even though you don't think that you're a formal mentor, there's always someone that's watching you, right? And there's always someone that's looking to be mentored. And I think it's also very difficult now because there's lots of articles out there about mentoring and formally asking for someone to be your mentor. But I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but I think it's very awkward to go to someone and ask, you know, hey, can you be my mentor? It's almost like asking somebody out, right? So there's always opportunities to go ahead and be a mentor just through your actions. And you'll find that people are looking for that, and you'll get it back as well too. Oh, these are great. Informally, yes, a lot of the mentoring does happen informally. Giving back, paying it forward. Yes, it can be awkward. Thank you. So let's spend a little bit of time talking to each other. I think that'll be really important. And we'll do some breakout groups. Do you want to go ahead and take it from here, Karima?
Okay, so we're going to put you into breakout rooms. So room number 1, the question that you are going to discuss is, what was a successful or unsuccessful mentoring relationship that you had? And let's see, I think Lisa, that's your room. Are you taking room number 1? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the second question, what for breakout room 2, what are the characteristics you need or want in a mentor? What are the characteristics that you need to display as a potential mentee? And Kaya, that is your room. And then, there you go. And then room number 3, how might the mentoring relationship be different when a mentor does or does not look like you. And so that's my room. So we are going to assign you to your rooms. I think, Leslie, are you putting us all in the breakout rooms?
Yes, I am right now.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be going in about 1 second.
Okay, so I think I'm next. Welcome back, everybody. Black women are multifaceted and diverse and require mentoring models that cater to their professional and personal complexities. Often, when presented with well-intentioned but ill-fitting mentoring relationships and opportunities determined by non-diverse management or other professional areas, Black women turn to their networks that exist outside of their workplace, engage in mentoring relationships that have been defined and tested, and return to the workplace with additional knowledge and even some wisdom, skills, and increased self-confidence. And so let's take some time to share what was discussed in your separate breakouts. Who wants to go first?
So we can probably start with group 1 since we had the first question. We didn't hear from everybody though.
I know.
Is there anyone who wants to take it and maybe kind of describe their own experience and summarize a little bit about what we talked about? Okay, I can do the summary for that too. We had some time talking about successful and unsuccessful mentoring relationships. Some that were set up sort of by design and some that just happened. We also talked about unsuccessful relationships where I think it brought up a really interesting point too, where the person who was assigned as a mentor wasn't someone who was actually happy in their role, so unable to really provide that support and be a mentor. One of the other things that we didn't really get to talk about either is the importance of that mentoring relationship and what you need from the mentor and what you need from that mentor to be more of yourself, right, authentically. So we didn't get to all of those things, but we talked a little bit about what made those relationships good or bad. Is there anything that anyone wanted to add from group 1? Nope. I think we.
Good summary.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry. I wanted to just say this really quick, that in the study that I conducted, which was dealing with intersectionality as the framework, we were really focusing, or I focused on how Black pre-service teachers that were of different gender, ethnicity, and different phases within the journey through the experience had similar experiences of racialized trauma, and that the supports that they were looking for did not come from within the institution. They came from the same things you're speaking of, which basically resulted in a NET PTC, which I run, which is a network for pre-service teachers and teachers of color. And it's a really not even an official thing, but it's something that I wanted to utilize from finding. So we actually have a meeting tonight, and it's an opportunity for people to do just what you were talking about. So I can definitely speak to that. So thank you.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
It's a wonderful group. I have participated one time. So thank you, Dr. Brown. It was really good. Okay. So I guess we can move on to question 3 because it looks like we are running out of time, which is always the case. So in breakout room 3, we tackled the question, how might the mentoring relationship look or be different when a mentor does or does not look like you? And we had some really interesting responses. Stacy and Jennifer, do you want to share what we discussed, or do you want me to summarize for you?
I mean, I can speak if you want me to. I can speak from my perspective. And Jennifer said, take it away. Okay. So we talked about when it's a mentor or mentee that looks like you, there's that instant connection. A lot of times, I'm not gonna say all the time, but a lot of times there's that instant connection because you have similarities, maybe cultural similarities, experiential similarities, where someone who doesn't look like you, it may require a learning process first, where you need to get to know who they are, what they're about, their background, their experiences. Whereas in the example that I gave is, my former dean, we were sisters first, and then we were colleagues because we had that immediate connection, via a sorority connection. We weren't in the same sorority, but that sorority connection, or just because, she was almost a girlfriend more than a colleague.
That's really great. Thank you. Thank you, Stacy. And I know one of the things that I wanted to share in our breakout room, but I didn't get to, and it kind of, Jennifer's, example made me think of this when she talked about having a mentor who was very different from her, but he was very clear and very specific about what that relationship was. And he was intentional about making sure that she got through her doctoral process. And it reminded me of a former supervisor that I had, who is an older white male from the South. But his wife is Black, and he and his wife have been committed to social justice since the 60s and whenever they met. And I consider him family. I consider him almost a second father to me. But the main difference was that, when we were working together, as is the case in higher ed, they say the battles in higher ed are so fierce because the stakes are so low. It's like a bad joke, but if you're in it, you get it. But I remember that I had to think differently about my position in that space, because ultimately he was a white male with tenure and I was a Black woman without. So he could fight some battles and he could do some things that I could fight them too, but the repercussions for the two of us were vastly different. So, being clear about the relationship when the mentor is different from you, understanding the socio-cultural capital the mentor might have that the protege doesn't have. There are all those things that kind of come into play there. So, but okay, so
we have team 2. Do we have time for team 2?
Team 2? Oh, we skipped team 2.
Yeah, it's okay. I didn't want to jump in. I was trying to respect protocol here. So this will be quick. We discussed some of the characteristics you need or want in a mentor. And what came out was that we need a mentor to be non-judgmental, compassionate, empathetic, objective, very open-minded, also to be a good listener, and to meet the person where they are. Also being approachable, responsive, authentic, loyal, trustworthy. And one last one I added was relatable. I think that's so important.
That's important.
Yeah.
Those are excellent responses. Thank you. I'm glad that Kaya brought us back around to group 2. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. All right. So it looks like we are coming to the end of our presentation. We just have this little slide here. How did we 3 co-authors invest and multiply our sociocultural capital in this space? And as I mentioned before, Lisa and I were colleagues at Rutgers. Lisa actually had my role before I had my role, and then went on to the great honors college. But I had a particular duty in my role that no one else on my team knew how to do, and really nobody wanted to do it. That was just the bottom line. Those are the facts. And thanks to Lisa taking me under her wing and teaching me how to get through this process, I maintained my sanity and was able to be very efficient at what I needed to do. And I don't think that I would have been able to make it through learning the processes and things like that the way that I did without Lisa's help. So we became colleagues and friends. And then Kaya and I mentioned we are sorority sisters, and we are both doctoral students. And Kaya is a mentor extraordinaire. She has mentored so many young people, both in her corporate roles and in her community service roles. So that's always kind of filed away, Kaya is super mentor. Well, Lisa and I would always talk about the need that Black women in academia have for mentoring and things like that. So one day, lo and behold, into my inbox pops this opportunity to write a paper about mentoring. And ha ha ha, all the connections came together. I got Lisa, I got Kaya, I need to get them to meet. So we did that, and we divvied up what we needed to do in terms of the research for the paper, pulled it together, and here we are. So it's wonderful because this has been an example of peer-to-peer mentoring, and we've been able to take and bank our sociocultural capital and turn it into, at least for me and for Kaya, our first academic publication. This is not Dr. Sand and Jewel's first academic publication, but she has invested her expertise in helping us reach this point. So just a little shout out to our little ponytail and glasses crew, as we said before. And so now I think we have a little bit of time left. I'm not going to explain this image. They let me keep this image here. But it's a beautiful example of diversity. Let's just say that. But now we have some time. So if you have questions or comments, this is the time to share them.
If you can, I know that we're really short on time. If you can go back to the We All We Got slide, I don't think that we were able to show that one.
Oh, okay.
If you just wanted to sort of explain that one for a quick.
Oh, sure. So if you all are not familiar with this amazing sister scholar, this is Dr. Yaba Blay. And I have credited her with this saying, we all we got. Dr. Yaba Blay is the creator of Professional Black Girl, which is an amazing platform. You can find her on social media, on her website. She has also written a book, and it's up for its second printing. It's called One Drop. And she tackles issues of colorism and race and things like that. She also produced, I don't know if you all will remember, but years ago, Soledad O'Brien had a special on CNN called Race in America, I think it was, or Black in America. It's called Black in America. And Dr. Yaba Blay produced one of the segments, and it was all about colorism and things like that. But one of the things that she always promotes through her various platforms is this connectedness amongst Black women, and this notion that, you know, ultimately we all we got. We have to support each other no matter what the space is. You know, we have to celebrate our intellect and celebrate our beauty and our connectedness and be, you know, our best champions and cheerleaders. So, so when this is all over, I will have to let her know that I love her for her scholarship, and I have also cited a sister. That's a hashtag, cite a sister, CITEASISTA. So when you get a chance, look up her work. And if you have the opportunity to do so, please cite Dr. Yaba Blay. So thanks, Lisa. Thanks for the reminder.
Absolutely. I know we're just about done, but I did want to encourage you to reach out to any of us if you had any questions or comments or feedback, or just for further discussion. We'd love it.
Look at the chat. There's some chat questions going on. I didn't know if you guys were aware.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just so you know.
Oh, let's see. What do we have here?
I just have a question. Is this going to happen again in the upcoming session, or what's the structure? Because I would love to have a session like this again.
Oh,
well, this particular session, not like, I mean, of course, the whole thing, I would love for it to happen again, but this one definitely piqued my interest.
Sure.
So you're talking about today, like in the second? Well,
This
no,
mentoring session here.
they're all different sessions in the second session, so it won't be any repeats.
So they would have to run this
Put
again.
Put that on the feedback form.
Okay.
Sure.
With that being said, I do have to end this meeting because we have to start and jump to our next meeting, which starts in about 4 minutes. So I want to thank you all for coming today. And if you can, when you sign out, go to the next meeting, or if not, just fill out our form for feedback. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
ladies.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.